In this life, as we come to our senses, when we finally start realizing who we are or in what kind of environment we live, we also start understanding our worth. And it is not the worth that we actually have, but what our families have achieved, and somehow we end up carrying that worth, that label on our forehead that says pawn. And I guess most of us are pawns in the game of chess called life. But believe me, my friend, no one wants to be a pawn, because that is the most useless piece in chess. Who is born only to be used as a sacrifice, and most of the time, a sacrifice that is meaningless, a sacrifice which is not as big as that of a king or a queen. So slowly we start accepting our reality. We start becoming the so-called practical with our life. But did you ever think that maybe there could be more to life of a pawn? Maybe if a pawn is working hard and is determined, then maybe pawn can change its life too? What if a pawn wasn't just born to die a meaningless life? What if there is more to life of a pawn than a pawn thinks? It is always the attitude and what we think of ourselves. It is our mind that belittles us. It is always that sound in our head that goes on and on saying, oh, I can't do this because where I live I don't have opportunities, or I can't do that because I have these disabilities. Believe me, if you're looking for a problem, you'll always find plenty. Every pawn carries a big list of excuses, but never thinks that he doesn't need a list of excuses, but just one reason to rise above. One reason to become successful that will give meaning to its meaningless life. You know, when the pawn decides to move forward and stops nagging and complaining about how life is harsh and evil, and finally decides that I'm going to make it even if it means dying while I'm trying, only then pawn makes it to the other side of the chessboard. And guess what? The pawn becomes the queen, the most powerful piece in chess game. You know that it is not one pawn or two pawns who have the ability to become the queen, but every single pawn has the same amount of opportunity to become the queen. But why one pawn becomes the queen and others die as a pawn? Why? If you Google what is pawn in chess, then the definition that Wikipedia provides is: the pawn is the most numerous piece in the game of chess, and in most circumstances, also the weakest. It historically represents infantry, or more particularly armed peasants or pikemen. So by definition, pawn is not meant to be something special, something great, but an armed peasant who is destined to die, but not every pawn thinks that way. There are pawns who want to change their life, who don't blame themselves being born as a pawn, but resolves not to die as one. I want you to ask yourself one question today. What is it that is making you live a life of a pawn, even though you know that success and happiness lie on the other side of the board, but still you choose to sit on this side? What is it